Hey guys, welcome to Hope It Helps. And my guest on the show today is Mr. David Szecsei. Did I say that right?
Szecsei, but you were very
Szecsei.
close.
All right, thank you. So, guys, for people who don't know, me and David actually connected through LinkedIn, and he's the head of programs at Mind Valley, which, as many of you know by now, is a company that I absolutely love and I'm super passionate about. And David's really passionate about, personal development and has a really interesting story of how he actually got to Mind Valley. So, David, before we get into all the, details about that, just give all of us a little bit of background about yourself, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah. Hey, Khaled, I'm very glad to be here. I mean, it's a quite a long story. I don't know how deep you want me to go into my story, but very shortly, I'm just started my 5th year with Mind Valley, and since October, I've been the head of premium programs. So this includes all the coaching programs and everything besides the Mind Valley membership and Mind Valley Quest programs, all above that. Previous years, I've been working mostly in business development, doing sales, along with Jason Campbell, your previous guests.
Yeah.
And I've been also working with some of the Mind Valley brands like Livebook, and also with the Mind Valley events team in the first 4 years. It was exactly 4 years, and then I got promoted to head of premium programs.
Awesome. And I'm curious, how was that transition moving from, the sales role that you had to into the premium programs now?
I would say, and again, I don't want to repeat Jason. He's the expert, and he's writing his book about love and how to sales and love correlate. And so I think everyone is a salesperson in a way. Also, how we do and how we used to do sales at Mind Valley is a quite unique approach. So I would say that being the head of premium programs, it hasn't changed much. It's just more like a strategic role. But we are still having the same mission it rather expanded. Before I was more in B2C to find the students, to match with the right programs. Now it changed a bit that I'm also working on how to find new coaches to our program, for instance. I'm working more with Vision and the other exec team members on forming the strategy and how to embed premium programs into Mind Valley. So I would say that it's 60-65% the same, but it comes with more meetings, with more strategizing, and also it's more work with the other stakeholders as well, not only with our students.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think you made a good point that everyone is a salesperson on some level. So I've taken so many of the Mind Valley courses. I took the Jose Silva, the Jim Quick, Keith Farazi. So I've taken many courses. So I was thinking, and what I really want to ask you about is, what does the process look like when you're adding a new course? In terms of what does that process look like? Do you start the year and you look at the courses that you have and you're like, okay, these are the learnings or new courses we want to add to Mind Valley, and then you go out and find the right coaches to come and create that program? Could you walk us through that process?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not 100% my jurisdiction on how we find new authors, although I know. So of course, I can tell you some, and for the audience, some basic ideas how we do it. Of course, I don't want to go too deep into the details. I could talk hours about this. But basically what happens is that we have a very unique approach if you compare with any other personal development sites. By the way, I'm using others as well. So I'm not saying that only Mind Valley is the one site which I'm using for personal development, but I do for around 80% of my personal development is happening or used to happen there, even before I had joined to the company. So basically, we have a unique approach. If you done the Livebook program, it has 12 categories. It's a very wide from health and fitness to character to quality of life to parenting. So what had been happening that Mind Valley before for almost like 12 to 13 years, we were mostly offering spiritual courses around spirituality and all the related topics. And by the way, it's very much the same time when I joined to Mind Valley. From around 2015, 2016, we changed and we went into health and fitness. We went into personal development. That's when we had Robin Sharma, Sri Kumar Rao. That's when we started WildFit with Eric Edmonds. That's when we started Livebook with John and Missy Butcher. So it really opened a new chapter for Mindvalley. And obviously when Lifebook became such a success, and it's kind of like the foundational program, and what makes it unique compared to other personal development companies is that it has a more holistic approach, and not only focusing on spirituality or wealth or influence, but really go deep into each 12 categories. So basically this had been a strategy for us to have courses for each 12 categories, even though some of those are very niche ones like love or parenting. So we are really proud that right now in 2021, we are covering each of the 12 categories. And of course, something what it might not be a new step, but we usually work only with the top best authors. So we have a team specifically managing this process. We have team members around the world, and we have like very strict metrics about evaluating different authors, because we can't deny that there are many teachers who would like to be working with us. But of course, we have to make sure that it's the best author. We have to make sure that they also have an audience. We have to make sure that they have proven themselves. There are a lot of metrics. If you look at TED Talks they did, if you look at their books which got published, and if you look at the current teacher portfolio, we really are proud that 80% of the teachers are already superstars in their niche. But what Mindvalley is also proud of is that we have certain teachers who we built up. Before they were operating in an extremely niche environment, so they had been amazing, but they were not necessarily New York Times bestselling authors, or didn't fill up seminars of hundreds or thousands of people. At the same time, they had a niche market. We were really optimistic that it was going to grow, and it did happen. And they grew along with Mindvalley. So I would say it's around 80-20, the role. That's a good estimation, plus minus 5%.
Yeah, that's really interesting that there are certain, that makes a lot of sense that there are certain metrics that the potential trainers that you want to bring on the course have, like audience, like proven track record, books, whatever it might be. But what's also cool is that even if they don't have that, but they're experts in their niche field, now with Mindvalley, you kind of give them a platform to expand to a much wider audience and to teach people, whatever their field of expertise is. So I think that's really interesting. And you said that you use multiple sites, for your personal development, which I think is good to have different perspectives from different organizations and so on. They said 80% of it was mainly focused on Mindvalley, which also makes a lot of sense. So I'm curious, from the courses that you've done, which was your favorite and which did you feel had the biggest impact on you from the ones that you've done at Mindvalley?
Oh my God, it's like, I have a very close relationship with the Mindvalley authors. I'm very lucky that many of them are actually friends. So it's a bit of a question. Do you like mom or dad more? So I have to, but I'm trying to answer this. Obviously, I have to disappoint you. I can't tell you only one course,
Sure.
but Lifebook definitely. I did Lifebook 4 months after I joined to Mindvalley. I also been lucky to do the live experience. I'm also very grateful to work with John and Missy Butcher. They are one of the authors who I have a very good friendship with. So I visited them in Hawaii right before the lockdown started. So it's such a beautiful experience, that I had my last international trip to Hawaii, to John and Missy. And last year, March, I've been already leading, not the premium programs team, but back then premium programs was kind of like a startup project inside Mindvalley, which worked out, and I got promoted. So it was like a beta team, kind of like so just starting out and let's see how it works. Unfortunately, worked out. So I wasn't working with John and Missy back then. Of course, we did talk about business, but I was really blessed, that they still invited me. I was in LA and they say, you should drop by Hawaii. And they didn't know that all this craziness was going to happen. So I definitely, my heart is with Lifebook. And I also believe that having Lifebook is like having a compass life, because I've been always, my mother is a librarian, so I was very blessed to grow up there. My father is a coach, a sports coach, so I've been telling that I spent my childhood either in the library or in the gym, so I'm very grateful for that. So lack of learning had never been the issue for me, because again, this is something I got from home. But what Lifebook did is help me to organize all of this knowledge and ideas and strategies. Exactly, because I tend to, when I had my sport career, or when I came to Asia after my studies, I had this trap that sometimes I was really focusing on only one or two things, like sports or money or career, and definitely it had its ramifications after some time. So Lifebook really balanced it out, and not to mention that the Lifebook offer, the Lifebook online offer, that basically when people pay a $500 refund, and if they finish, they can actually ask back their money. So it's, if someone is willing to lend their $500 for 6 to 8 weeks to Mindvalley, they can do it for free. Again, I don't want to use marketing gimmicks there that it's for free. Might be for transactions, it might be a few dollars, but if you look at the quality of that program and the impact, and it's such a strong program that it can have this premise that, listen, if you complete and you want your money back, we give it back to you. So I think it also proves, but I have my own transformational story around it. But again, I don't want to leave out, if to mention some favorite courses, I would definitely say the Longevity Blueprint from Ben Greenfield. It helped me to transform as an athlete to a hobby athlete. So basically why I love that program is because I used to work out 10 to 12 hours a week, even after my sports career. Wow. And then what the Longevity Blueprint helped me is that I decreased it to 1 hour to 90 minutes a week. But at the same time, my strength didn't decrease. Also, we had one of the biggest launches just starting today. The program is the 10x Fitness by Mindvalley. So something which I've been working on in the last 4 years, and I was guinea pig number 1 or number 2. I don't remember, but I was one of the first ones. It's also a truly transformational program. And let's go away from health and fitness. I would say the Habit of Ferocity from Stephen Kotler. To get the right mindset is definitely very strong. So around spirituality, I love the content of Jeffrey Allen, Duality or Unlocking Transcendence. This is something I have been doing lately. And for last, of course, I can't leave out Keith Ferrazzi on authentic networking and leadership. He is stunning. Like he's the author. When we sign authors, obviously I know them already. Because I read their books, but I can't deny that Keith Ferrazzi was the guy who I have been the most excited about. So even when I heard that we were having discussions to sign him, I was telling to Vishen, please sign him, just sign him, because he is amazing. And then I had this beautiful experience going to A-Fest, A-Fest Portugal in 2019. This was the last A-Fest we could host, and it was about spreading your influence and your impact. And who was one of the keynote speakers? Keith Ferrazzi. And we had the social evening. So we had before the conference started, we had a party which was about to know people. And what was really amazing to see him in action, because he's about authentic networking and connecting. And I had the chance to see him for a few minutes. I went to introduce myself. So it was really beautiful, to have a really deep learning experience. So I would say, when I say which is my favorite Mindvalley courses, obviously the ones where I had a deep experience, deep learning experience, and also a good relationship or good life learning opportunities with the teacher herself or himself.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I agree that, so I haven't done the Lifebook course, but I've taken a look at it, and it makes listening to your story about how it just helps give you a compass, because it really dives deep into the 12 key things that make up, I guess, a holistic life. So it makes a lot of sense how it helps give you structure to that. But also on your point, Keith Ferrazzi's program, I've done a lot of the programs, but that one just blew my mind. It gave me just a whole new perspective on networking and things like the rap and how to, the generosity things and all that kind of stuff. It's stuff I never even thought about, because sometimes I think people have a negative perception of networking. I was like, oh, it's just give to like get back, but it gave me a whole new mindset about that. And the fact that he was speaking at that event, which is spreading influence, I think makes perfect sense because he's the king when it comes to that. I wanted to come back to, I know, David, you're very passionate about personal development and growth. So I want to dive into that a little bit more. I know from a young age, you were into kickboxing and you were fighting for over 20 years and you traveled to Japan to, have that experience. And I know, I can imagine when you're fighting in competition, you have to be at almost 200%. You don't have each second matters. Each, a move like that, this could change everything. And I wanted to ask you, from all your years of fighting, what is the biggest lesson you learned? And then I have a follow-up question after that, which I'm curious to hear.
It's even more difficult than the question about, more challenging than the question you asked about favorite author. There were multiple ones, but definitely focusing is number one. It's okay. Again, I don't want to from cliches or I just wrote an article about Bruce Lee, and of course I could bring many from him, but it's really about respect and focus. I would say that this is the two most important, because if you look at kickboxing, I have most of my fights in full contact rules. It's a tough game. Again, I don't want to dramatize it, but it is definitely, and it's not necessarily, many people think that it's because of the punches and the kicks, but for instance, what many people don't know, that it's extremely exhausting. Yeah. So it's like I always tell to someone that just go and get a boxing glove or ask it from someone and punch a bag without stopping for 1 minute. And even athletes who have been doing other sports, they're out. And then I say, you see how tiring, but the bag is not kicking back. Yeah. That's not punching back, because that, and also, when you fight, and that's when I learned a lot about evolution, also in Leuven, I had the chance, and actually I did a very interesting research. I'm very proud to have my countryman, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who is the writer of Flow. And I had an amazing professor called Professor Andreas Hey. He was a German-Hungarian evolutionary psychologist, also a professor from Leuven, but he came to teach in my home university. He had a huge influence on me to go to Leuven, who grew up in Africa. His father emigrated from Hungary after the 1956 revolution. And he had this extremely unique opportunity to grow up in Africa as a German-Hungarian boy. And that's when he started to be interested in evolutionary psychology, and all the stories and theories I learned from him. My mind was just like, I didn't want to believe. It was so eye-opening. And I did a research with him, and he supported that research about the connection of flow and fighting. Because many psychologists think that the people in not martial arts, in fighting sports like boxing, kickboxing, MMA, their motivation is bad childhood experiences. They actually want to beat up their father, and like all kinds of theories. And what I wanted to prove that might be true, but in a certain extent, but this is only the minority. And actually fighting is one of the flow triggers, because one of the main flow triggers, because if you look at the 9 requirements of flow, all of them is there when you are fighting. And not to mention that if you think back in the process of evolution, we know that activities which are the activities are rewarding for us, which were supporting us in our survival. Now, fighting was part of everyday life. If you look back to the Greek, it's been always around. Look at the most famous athletes; they are all fighters. And there is one theory saying, yeah, because we are very violent creatures, and we like to watch as other people beating each other up, etc., etc. And I wanted to prove that, yeah, it might be the 10% of the cases, but more about fighting is a flow trigger. And you have this extreme dopamine rush after a fight, but it has its ambiguity because it's also extremely difficult, very challenging. It is painful, and really you don't feel the punches and the kicks because of the level of adrenaline. but it's so tiring, and the light is on you and people are watching it, and you always, your ego is also there. What if I get knocked out? What if they record it and everybody will see it, etc. So probably that was the biggest lesson to learn, that you have to trust yourself, you need to focus, and at the same time you need to respect your opponent. So it's something what Bruce Lee had talked a lot about as well, how to balance out aggression, focus, and respect, because you do need it. You need to be aggressive, but you also have to be intelligent. So it definitely gave me an opportunity to learn about these ambiguous situations in life, because our mind is only can focus on one thing. We say fighting, oh, that must be brutal, that must be like just crazy, like how could people do that? But at the same time, if you compare with other sports, like look at Formula One, for instance, people watch it because they want to see. It might sound nasty what I'm saying, but they want to see because it's dangerous. Or if you look at American football or even European football, it's crazy how many injuries are there, and we have way less in kickboxing, because it's like when you learn climbing a mountain, there are very strict rules you have to apply, otherwise you are going to die. So our coaches made sure that because we were fighting, we were using our full power, that there were many rules we had to follow, and these rules were non-negotiable. Meanwhile, at other sports, which are not directly that violent, things can turn around, and a move which is not well calculated can cause extreme damages. Again, even in soccer, it can happen. Look at the terrible injuries they suffer from. So it's I can again talk a lot about, but in short, definitely focus, respect, and giving your best is the three main lessons.
Yeah, and I think those are such important lessons to learn, because those apply to can be applicable to everywhere in your life, from personal relationships to business and so on. And that famous saying, because I'm sure for your competitions you trained, you practiced, you studied, how you envisioned how the fight's going to go, but that famous saying, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, and then everything goes out the window. So in your experience, because I'm sure in any career you're going to get hit at some point. When you did, how do you start, how do you kind of reset and be like, okay, wow, okay, we gotta get back in this and refocus?
Yeah, it's more, you have to be very grounded. Of course, it's very easy to say, but when you are there, and this is again, I would say that this ambiguity is there not just for fighting, but in life. And it's a very good example to bring up Life book, and probably one of the most famous quotes ever. And I just love it so much. I think it's true all the time. You can't really say it's that no one ever won a war with a plan, and no one ever won one without it either. So it's so true. It's so true. It's I really like, if you look at the yin and yang approach as well, that yes, you are right. You have a plan until you get smashed in the face. At the same time, you are fighting and athletes. And I really like to say this comparison, and even when I'm coaching my own team, is that many people say, oh, you cannot plan anything in this world, and look at COVID. Planning, proper planning, and having a life book saved my career, because right before COVID, I was in event sales. So I would really say that about the big mistake what people make with, for instance, with planning or strategy, and it's very applicable to fighting, that when you do that, you don't write the future. Many people think that planning is writing the future, but that's crazy. Who the hell knows what's going to happen? Or even a fight. And just like, again, kickboxing, boxing, you can be ahead for 10 rounds, you get one punch, it's over. I think that's another reason why people love it so much, because you can never look away. If you watch soccer, a team is 5-0 ahead, you have 5 minutes back, it's 99.9% that's over. But in fighting, it just never happens. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that it's rather having a vision, and I did have a vision for myself out of event sales. So when all of these things happened after days and we had to cancel our events, and I had to talk with Vision about what's next, I had a planner, and I had the chance to make this plan while my head was clear and not all the stressors were on me. Now, this is the same about fighting. People are watching, the lights are on you, there is an extreme stress. If you don't prepare for a scenario that if you get punched seriously, go down what to do, then you are going to make the most likely the wrong decision. Now, again, that's also a bit tricky because we all know because of flow or extreme dangerous situations that it might happen that you are not freezing, but actually you became extremely creative and you just find a way out. It did happen. But again, you cannot really count on this. I had, even when I was in an international level, I just noticed that whenever I let my focus go a bit, or I didn't take the planning process that seriously, I made so childish mistakes. I was so ashamed of it. So I'm very lucky and blessed to learn this in my teenager years. So that's also part of a good coach. We always know, there are tricks. Also, we can't deny there are certain tricks which are a bit legal or let me say someone got drops down. We all know that if your mouthpiece is leaving your mouth, they have to wash it. So for instance, that you have more than 10 seconds. Obviously, you can only do it once. If you do it a second time, they deduct a point from you. Or, if someone gets punched and there are only a few seconds left from the round, then you go back, then the trainer knows that they put more water on you and they don't dry you up. So you stand up, you go back to fight, and then the judge will send you back. You can also play it once. And this is easy to say, this trick, but if it's not in your mind, or you don't have it written down, or you're not prepared, in a stress situation, you might just forget. Your ego takes over and like, shit, I got dropped. I just stand up, I'm gonna show it. And immediately you have to get grounded and you have to adjust. Yeah. And again, this is a lot of practice. So definitely you need long years, but I think these principles are also very applicable in business. And I can say that that part of the planning, I got promoted twice last year in Mind Valley, and not to say to brag, it was mostly not because I'm so amazing, it's because I did proper planning. And I also, let me tell you a personal development experience outside of Mind Valley, which was Vipassana. And it was a perfect timing, the 10-day silent meditation. I did it right. I did it 29th January, almost a year ago, till the 10th of February. As I was meditating for 10 days, not talking with anyone. It was right before my trip. A week later, I was in Las Vegas. That was an interesting contrast. But definitely I had the space, and again, 2020 had proved me that planning and strategizing and doing it in a smart way, and Livebook is a great tool, is essential. Yeah. And 2020 proved it to me. Not the years where nothing like COVID happened and I reached my goals. That's not a big deal. But when you have this mindset, you have the tools and it's written down and you can adopt very quick. Now that's the real deal. So that's why I say the Livebook process works. And again, it worked in 2018, it worked in 2019, but it worked the best in 2020. Because again, I really want to emphasize planning and strategizing is not about writing your future. It's writing your future self. What would that self do if something is not going according to the plan, or you create the circumstances? Now, again, COVID-19 is a global, has a global impact, which nothing like our generation, even our parents' generation, has ever seen. But still, okay, I also can't deny I'm very blessed with Mind Valley. So I can't say to everyone that this was going to happen 100% of the time, but I'm also very confident because I tried it in many different environments and circumstances, and I did definitely pass the test. And I also know that there's also way more to learn and work. So I'm every day optimizing for sure.
Yeah, I think you made a very good point about strategy and planning is not about writing your future. It's about you're having your vision for what you want to achieve, or like where you want to be, and having the plan is what you fall back on. Like you said, in your case with 2020, and when everything around the world, went crazy, that you come back to a proper plan, that you've taken the time to like plan, like strategize and write out. So you don't lose your way. You don't lose, okay, something has happened, but okay, we have the plan now. So we kind of have a direction on where to go. We don't know if the outcome will be exactly that, but at least we have a direction of where we want to go. So I think that's really useful and really important, especially in bit, like you learned it from your fighting experience and how it translates into business. So it's very similar as well. And I know, so this is something I was thinking about, because I know, so like you said, when you were younger, your mother was a librarian and your father was a coach. And I know from listening to the podcast, how you said in Hungary, there's a lot of Olympic athletes around you. So you were in an environment that, you know, you always wanted to strive for 100% and be the best. So you had that environment around you, and that kind of gave you the motivation to, you know, do the work that you need to do. But the question I have, David, is, that environment helped cultivate your mindset of like growth and personal development and always striving for the best because it was all around you. What advice do you have, or how does someone who hasn't had that environment or doesn't have that environment around them start shifting their mindset of one to personal growth and development and aiming for the best?
Yeah, definitely. Again, I can't claim everything to my environment, because obviously might be some certain things done about genetics or in general. I'm very fascinated and interested in this topic. I did learn this at university as well. And you know, there are also many different events which are shaping your future. Not to tell, I was born in a time when Hungary transitioned from communism to capitalism with all the successes and failures at the same time. Not to mention, I have family in Germany, you know, so I got an influence from them. Also, I have by the age of my father, who is turning 86, is like for many people in the same age like me, is their grandfather, right? So definitely, I mean, he was alive during the Second World War. He took part of the revolution against the Soviets. So his life experience and all the values he brought from there would definitely have the extremely huge impact on me. So yeah, I'm very blessed and grateful for the family I have, and I know that it's not common sense around the world. Unfortunately, not everyone has such a great family. But I would say that as much as it was a blessing, also certain things in Hungary were not one, which is people were very passive. We had this very ambiguous society. So yeah, we were very good at sports, but for instance, in certain like we have this very interesting thing, like let's compare Hungary with Austria. Like we are around the same size. We used to be the same country before. And in 2012, what happened that we won like 8 gold medals in London, 8 gold medals, 6 silver and 3 bronze. I'm 99% sure I'm right. And the Austrians, which have the same population like us, and their GDP per capita is around twice as much as Hungary's, or were back then, they won 0 medals, 0. And even the head of the Olympic Committee of the Austrians were freaking out and said, we never ever send tourists against to Olympic Games. You come here to compete, right? So if you look at this, Hungary was like way ahead, like really, we won 17 medals, they won 0. But at the same time, if you compare the data of how long Hungarians live and how long Austrians live, it was a significant edge for them. And also, if you look at the data, how many of the Austrians between the age of 50 to 60 worked out, and how many of Hungarians, they were like 3 times more. You know, so we had this bit of an extreme environment that, because we have such a great athletes, it didn't mean that, for instance, our population was healthy. They had like still many people smoking, still many people drinking. And because we were coming out of socialism, they had this many people had this passive mindset, you know, oh, things are happening to me, I don't have influence. I never forget that when I was running, so I took extra workouts. There was a time when I was really on kickboxing, and that was like when I was 14, that was 2001. And I remember that when I went for a walk outside of the gym, people were looking at like, what the hell is he doing? They didn't understand like what I was doing. They thought this guy is stupid. Like, what is in the winter? It was icy, it was cold. They did, old people, like, what the hell is he doing? They were like, you know, so that was 20 years ago. And fortunately, it changed a lot. So I would say that, yeah, I think I was at the right place at the right time, but that's not black and white either.
Yeah.
I would say that if someone doesn't have the right environment, you need to create it.
Okay.
We have all of these studies. I don't have to be the wise guy to say it, because there were many way more wiser people before me who had concluded that your peer group and your environment is probably the most important thing. I mean,
Yeah.
unless you have some, serious diseases or a terrible shock in your life, but your peer group is the most important. And that's why, going back to Keith Ferraz, why he's amazing. And for instance, authentic networking or his book, Never Eat Alone, is amazing because he's teaching you how to create it if you don't have it. And he had a very similar story, that he was growing up in a blue collar family. And just that the father had the drive, but didn't have the money, made him to end up in Yale and Harvard Business School. And basically he shared all the details about relationship action plans, about how to be generous, we show how to be assertive, how to be audacious, as he says, to lead to success. So definitely I would say that, and Mindvalley is also a very, very good example and the proof, that the right environment is crucial. It's both your peer group and also your home where you live. And again, it doesn't mean you have to be in a high-end place, but put things in order, how you start your day, if you are committed to what you do, to stick with it, and again, friends and collaborators. I really believe no one can do it alone, and I'm saying it as a former athlete. I was in an individual sport. We didn't have team competitions in full contact kickboxing. At the same time, I would be nowhere without my teammates, because they pushed me, they put other standards, and that's something fascinating with Mindvalley as well. And I have a bit of a déjà vu feeling, even though if it's a very different environment, but in Mindvalley, like literally everyone is the most important is besides contribution is transformation. So I really like that I get to into an environment where I got challenged as well. Like, I'm so good at personal development, and I look at someone like, okay, yeah, and it's important, and this is what I noticed when I came to Southeast Asia, both in Singapore and Malaysia. When, for instance, sports is not that strong or very far from where is it in Europe, and then you have to have your standards. And if you grew up in that environment, and it doesn't have to be about sports, it has to be professional life. It has all aspects of life, including parenting. You have to make sure that you have yourself high standards, but that's only the first step. And the second step is that you have a peer group which are holding you accountable, or if not holding you accountable, showing you examples how to reach that high standard. I really believe that this is probably the ultimate lesson of personal development. If you remove this, I would be very surprised to see anyone succeeding without these principles.
Yeah, I think you made a very good point about if you don't have that environment, you have to create it. It's up to you to create that environment. And like you said, putting the right people around you, because there's that famous book that you want to look at someone, look at the 5 people closest to them, and you get an idea of the kind of mindset they have and so on. So surrounding yourself with the right kind of people is the first step into creating that environment for yourself. And I remember listening to the podcast you were on. You told the story, and I thought it was very interesting about, I think it was a friend of yours. He lived down the street. His IQ was fantastic, but he had negative, behaviors and mindset of himself, and the world is unfair and so on. So I started thinking about the debate between IQ versus mindset and behavior, because you said the simplest model that we can take is cognition, mindset, and behavior, and you can take that from sports. So I was thinking, if let's say we're trying to weigh the two out. Is mindset and behavior more important than having a high IQ? Will this get me further than that? I understand, of course, all 3 are the best case scenario, but if you had to, compare the two in your opinion, which is more important, to develop the right mindset and behaviors, or to, you know, be focused on getting a high IQ?
You mean that you predominantly have the high IQ
Yeah,
and
exactly.
on the top, right?
Yeah.
So one thing, you know, when we talk about personal development, there are different directions where you can go. Because of my academic background, I really like to stick with reality. Now, I would like to, and this is something what Mindvalley also, it's our manifesto, right? That hire for attitude and train for skills. And I love this. So you say that the most important is the attitude of the person or the mindset, right? Let's translate it because it's almost, I'm not exactly the same, but we can have a discussion and compare the two. So for instance, when I'm hiring to my team, I follow this idea, but I adjust a bit because I still believe that a certain amount of IQ is still necessary.
Yeah.
So I did see, and it did happen with Mindvalley, we have to be honest, that we got extremely motivated guys with the right mindset, but their skill level was so low that unfortunately we had to part ways. And my heart was broken because they just couldn't perform. And you know, the amount of coaching you had to put in, it wouldn't be fair towards other teammates. So what I would say is to answer your question, and I'm giving a bit of a scientific answer, and it's not really an opinion, but mostly on that you need a certain amount of IQ. You don't have to be, you know, in the top 5%. I would say average IQ level with a very strong mindset will bring you to success. But if your IQ is in the bottom 10%, and even you have the best mindset, it's highly like you might reach somewhere, but probably you won't make it. I want to be brutally honest about that. And this is the same about sales and kickboxing. Is two examples of for some people they both are harsh but you know, yes, for instance, I wasn't a particularly gifted athlete, even though my father was an athlete. But I can't say I was quite average when they did the scouting when I was young. If you look, I was very skinny back then. But of course, I can't say that I didn't have any talent. But I had to work way harder than many of my teammates. And that back then I found it unfair. And I also have to tell you that it happened with me 2 times when I had official fights against world champions. And you know, I had to reach the point that, you know, I can't beat these guys. You know, I can have I can visualize it as long as I want. I can get the best coaches I want. They just had an edge over me with talent. So again, I can be optimistic, but I had to be realistic. You know, and I still had to build from the success and say, okay, at least I fought with world champions. I was in full contact rules against them. I survived. I wasn't that bad. You know, of course, if you compare, so it's all about learning and all kinds of skills. And this is a philosophy I'm using for hiring. Mindset is extremely important, but it's not enough. It's an equation. So you need to have the cognition, you need to have the IQ, you need to have the muscle, or at least a baseline where you can grow. I think it's very, you know, we had all of these amazing stories, you know, there was one of this guy, and I highly respect him, who had Down syndrome, and, you know, he started MMA, and they did an exhibition fight, you know, with another guy, and 10 million people watched it. And it's so heart touching, and I have such a high respect for him, you know, that with coming with such a disease, and he made it. But then people immediately misinterpreted it. And, you know, they put like, he's a fighter, like a champion. Yeah, he has the champion mindset, but obviously it would be extremely irresponsible to put him in a cage with a pro.
Yeah,
that would be game over. It was an exhibition fight, you know, but and again, he deserves the trophy, because where he started and where he ended up is stunning. I would pay even more respect to him than many of the champions I know. At the same time, we shouldn't be delusional, and it's a strong word, I know, because I'm coming from these 2 environments sales and sports where achievement matters, and mostly kickboxing is a dangerous sport. So I did experience this. Many guys want to be salespeople. They find it cool. Also, the great thing about sales that once you learn it, you have great relationship with the people. You travel the world. But sales is like sports. It's the top 10% makes 90% of the money. And then you have to be on top of your game all the time. And many people got, like they were amazed by this. And they were it's time for me to make it. And I have the mindset, I have the drive, and it's true. But still, you need to be able to communicate. You need to be professional. And also we know that sales is shifting. I'm very happy with this. And intelligence is getting more and more important, both emotional and cognitive intelligence. So I believe, and I'm even happy to give away my sales secrets from Mind Valley or working in personal development. The single one factor which helped me the most was that I knew personal development. So whenever I set high standards for myself, just as I did as a fighter, I knew I want to do 100 push-ups without stopping. I know I want to run 3 kilometers below 12 minutes. I know I want to do 50 kicks in 2 minutes with full power. So I had the standards, and I had the same for my personal development goals. And whenever I had the sales call, 95% of the time, the other person who I've been talking, they knew it. They knew that whatever questions they asked, they knew that there is no manipulation. I was grounded into it. And I could give them advice, and I would even use the word coach them during a sales call. So I'm very glad, to be honest, that sales is shifting. Still too many people, they have this idea about mostly American sales people or used car sales people, who are like only about manipulating and they rather do information manipulation, which is anyway disappearing because this is the 21st century. This is all about inbound. This is changing, and also in my role, I will stay as a salesperson. I think in my work career, I had to sell this to Vision, the Mind Valley Premium Coaching. I had to hardcore selling it to him. It took me a few runs. I had to sell it to the exec team. So, but you have to have skin in the game. And this is true about everything else. So that's why I like the cognition mindset behavior model so much, because it helps you to set realistic goals. And also, again, I'm realistic, and that makes me optimistic that I know that I have my limitations. And probably I wouldn't be at this level, and sales and sports were two areas where I could do something outstanding, and I can prove it by numbers. But definitely other areas, like me as a designer, me as a dancer, me as a singer, would be terrible. Man, you wouldn't want to see me, hear me, nothing. And I can have the right mindset. I can visualize it. I want it. But what everyone has to understand is that there are so many options in life. And let me say you want something, and they always say, oh, the burning desire is there. But the most valuable asset you have is your time. So there are exceptions. And, I always say that the media is fooled by them. They always like to show the exceptions, right? Because again, it might happen that someone doesn't have skill or doesn't have talent, and 1 out of 100 still makes it. But by the way, many times luck has a huge part of it, or get an extraordinary coach or something like that. But we shouldn't be fooled by the small numbers. And it can be tough. It had been tough for me when I faced with these world champions, and I was dreaming about, I wanted so badly to beat world champions. Now it didn't work out. But I had to make my move. I'm still proud what I achieved. And I had to set my own standards. And instead of being a perfectionist, I rather stick with the way of being optimizing all the time. Yeah. Sports, life, all the 12 categories, focusing on optimizing, because you never will be perfect. You can't be the champion all the time. And there are also many other parts of life, but you just have to make sure that what you're doing at the time, you give 100%, you are grounded, you have the cognition, you have the mindset, you have the behavior, and then it will work out. Sometimes you won't, but you still have this calmness, and you still have this this power inside you that it's most of the times it's just gonna work out.
Yeah, I think you made a very good point, first of all, about that mindset is great and it is a very important factor to have, but there has to be some innate level of skill to a certain degree. There has to be a foundation, and then the mindset will carry you forward. But if you don't have that, and I think it's a very important point, because a lot of people just talk about have the right mindset, but you also need to factor in that you need the skills to excel that mindset. So that mindset, you know, can push you further and so on. So I think number one, that's a very good point. Second, you talked about how, what I like is that you said, I'm realistic. You know, you had the dreams of being the world champions and you trained and whatever, but sometimes it's just not going to work out, but that's okay. And also you talked about how, you know, in social media and the way things are portrayed, everyone likes to show the exceptions to the majority. You know, not, like I said, not everyone's going to achieve that dream they want. Not everyone's going to achieve that. But if you have the right foundation in place, even if that doesn't work out, whatever comes after that, or whatever comes even later in life, you're doing the right things to achieve one of the things that you'd like to achieve. It's not so binary, you know, you have so many options. And in terms of success, like you said, everyone thinks it's, you know, achieving, getting that goal, getting that money, getting that bronze, that medal, whatever it might be. And everyone has a different definition of success. And I know for you, it was about meaningful work and meaningful relationships. So I think it's super important, and especially given the way the world has changed, that's what will, you know, add to your success, no matter what area or arena you're trying to get into. But the question I have for you, and I want to be conscious of our time as well, David, so I just got this and two more questions for you. Everyone has a different definition of success, but why is a lot of the times for majority of people do we see success as a material thing or like a monetary thing, and not like your own personal growth and development? Like to see like, oh, a year ago I was that person and here I am now as this new person, and that could be, for example, success for me.
I think, just going back to science and psychology, it's mostly true about that, you know, our brain likes simple things. We don't like complications. And the challenge, and this is one of the biggest missions we're working at Mind Valley, and I also have a key role in this, to make personal development more measurable. So I mean, money is something, you know, the feedback loop is extremely fast, and also the marketing around wealth generation is extremely strong, and it has always been. If you look back to evolution, it was key to survival. And let's, okay, most likely 90% of the world won't starve to death, you know, if your things are not working out, but still it has such an important role, not to talk about the ego, the culture, the self, you know, so I mean, that's obviously makes it so tempting. And also, if we see how our life is all over about in each aspect of it, and I can tell you that for me, money is the fourth most important thing in the world. It's not the first, it's not the second, it's not the third, but it's one of the most important things in the world. I don't want to fool myself, just like I don't like to fool myself with mindset and saying money is not important. I'm like, hell, it is important. Yeah. Don't tell me it's not important. That's fooling yourself. It's not the most important, but again, that's where mindset, consciousness, and groundedness comes in. That you can hold this together. It's important, but it's not the most important. And listen, I have to take my own habits. I've been checking one of my New Year resolutions that I'm not tracking my finances every single day. It's so addictive, mostly when it goes up. You know, it's so addictive. You have this rush. And you know, also there is something what Chris Darcy, a very famous productivity guru, said. I can't quote this enough, and it's so powerful. He said the problem is that we started to love what we measure, and we don't measure what we love.
Ooh.
So strong. Wish I would come up with this, but unfortunately, yeah. I can't claim it. Just like for when I said the meaningful work, meaningful relationships, that goes to Ray Dalio. amazing man. And I just read his article. He lost his son a few weeks ago. He's one of the richest men on earth, and how he went through this tragedy. And that's something you can't plan. But having such a firm groundedness and the mindset he has, how he went through and how he reflected on it, he's like has a $30 billion, most successful hedge fund manager ever. And he had to go through something like this, and how openly he could reflect about was something extraordinary. But again, you know, it happens with to-do lists, and I like to bring consciousness, not just ticking off boxes, but also seeing, is it actually aligns with my vision? Or I do it just because of the ego. It's the same you invited for your podcast, right? I find it's a very good opportunity to talk about this stuff. And there's another approach. If I only think about, oh, how many friends are going to listen, you know, my friends are going to see I was in a podcast, how cool I am, and I can talk what we have been done with Mind Valley. It's also what meaning you give to it.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm a human being as well. I'm stepping into this trap every single day as well. So I would say that the reason is threefold. Why we like money, fame, Instagram post, etc., it's mostly because of the ego. So your ego attached to it. It's also about the culture and the environment, right? What you're around, and not to talk about your genes and your genetic wiring, right? Which says I want more, always more. And basically, I think that's mindfulness about. Meditation and mindfulness is about that. Many people think that, oh, you connect with the divine. And I don't want to sound unrespectful, and probably many people are reaching that point. But for instance, what I loved about Vipassana is actually working on these triggers and calming them down. You cannot eliminate, or you can if you devote your life only to meditation. Probably you can do it after decades, but it's just turning down the volume.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still having the triggers. It's still there, but it's not leading and controlling my life, or it doesn't do it most of the time. So I think that probably these are the biggest barriers in this. These are in our own minds.
Yeah.
You know, and again, I'm still stepping into this very often, but I'm conscious about it and doing my best to be more mindful.
Yeah, and I think you made a very good point. The two main points you talked about, which is the ego and the culture, because I think that plays a huge factor in our perception of what success looks like. You know, you want those, like you said, that fame, whatever, you want those likes, that external validation that, oh, I'm successful now. And also I think culture plays a big role, because different cultures and different societies in the world view success in different ways. Some are very materialistic, some see it as just having, I don't know, a good family and a simple life. It's completely different all over the place. So I think those two are very good points. For my last two questions, David, first of all, this is a question I recently started asking. When you look back at your career, either professionally or personally, what are you most proud of?
The people I've been surrounded with.
The people you've been surrounded with.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And for my last question, this is a question I ask all my guests, is what is the message you'd like people to take home with them today?
Whew, like mostly after an hour like this, just to summarize or take up is like, you know, dream big, take bold actions, and always count in reality as well, which is tough. It's very difficult to measure. You know, I don't want to put too much weight on people, but really that's how I would. It's because there is no such, you can't say, oh, you shouldn't dream or you should do that. But you have to know that we live in a random life, and again, the last year had proven it. But there's no reason to give up. And I honestly can say that I had periods when my dreams got broken. I had injuries. I had difficult situations. I had very bad luck in certain situations. But also, if I go back, this happened because I've been trying. I was showing up. I was there. And it's obvious that it's going to happen. Just like I had bad failures in my sports career. I had the humiliating times, not just when I lost or I knocked out, I knocked down, or I disappointed my coach or my family. Fortunately, my family were always nice. They respected for me, so I couldn't disappoint them, but I still felt that I disappointed myself. So I would say that definitely it's be out there, do your best, you have the right cognition, the right mindset, which leads to your right behavior, and don't fall in love, don't get too attached, and don't start to just fall in love in collecting likes, followers. Look at more, what impact do you make, whose life do you contribute to? And again, these are all true about me, so I don't want to be lecturing here that, oh, I know you do this, yeah, it happens the same with me every single day. But these tools, mindfulness, and again, I can't praise enough Vipassana, because there's such a beautiful process. Everyone should check it around. It's a donation based, so there's no reason to not do Vipassana unless you have a sick family member, or you really can't get away for 10 days. But it's a donation based program, and of course, you won't be surprised that I always say that, guys, go check out Mind Valley. Don't want to do too much. We have everything from our free podcast episodes to our membership program. We have, as I told, live book which you can do for free, which obviously means you for a few weeks you have to give your $500, but we give it back to you if you finish. So there are so many opportunities out there, and I mean, I was lucky with the library where my mother worked. So to be exact, she was a bookbinder and my aunt was a librarian. So I was very blessed to have those books. But back then it was different because we only had like 10% of personal development translated, but now most of the people can speak English. And again, Mind Valley has so much valuable free content up there. And also all the podcast episodes and your conversations, with all of these people. So there is no reason to not do personal development, to not grow yourself. It's just, I think it's just inevitable and one of the most rewarding things. And as you grow yourself, you also grow the people around you. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things you can do.
100%, man. I really love that message and I resonate with it so much. And I think it's what I loved about it is, focus on personal development, grow yourself. You don't, because that's going to not only grow the people around you, but I think a very crucial thing is to have the dream, but also be, realistic. Don't fall in love with that dream. So if that doesn't happen, it's the end of the world, because you can have a million dreams and okay, that one didn't work out. Okay, let's go work out other the 99 or whatever it might be. So I love that message. And I think a lot of people could relate to that. David, I wanted to say thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I've absolutely loved this conversation. I could talk about personal development for days, honestly. And I really learned a lot from you and got a new perspective. And I think a lot of people can benefit from this conversation. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Sure, Khaled. I really enjoyed to be here with you.
Awesome. Guys, to everyone listening, thank you so much. And as always, hope it helps. Peace.